Hello everyone, welcome back to the Analyst for 16th of February 2024, where we will be trying to understand the most important articles from the Hindu and the Indian Express. Now, we find the very first article is a very important case from the Supreme Court on the electoral bonds, and we will be trying to understand what are the various basic concepts out of the same. In the next one, we'll be looking at a very important piece of legislation in India that is known as the right to information, and we will be also discussing some of the various issues and challenges out of the same. Next, we'll be trying to understand a very basic economic concept known as the windfall tax. And in the next article, we'll be looking at a very important discussion and some of the government initiatives related to the pulses production in India. And finally, we will be trying to conclude the discussion with the Schengen zone, which is a part of a special visa-free zone in the Europe. Students, will be discussing about the electoral bond scheme in the very first article, and this is a very important piece of news which is coming from the Supreme Court directly, where the Supreme Court has struck down the electoral bond scheme, citing that it is totally unconstitutional. Now, what are the various aspects of the same? We'll be understanding the same here. Now, it is very important for our prelims, where we have the various aspects of polity, and also for GS2, where we have the Representation of People Act. Now, here, before starting with the details of the electoral bonds which is shown here, I want all of you to highlight the role of money in any democratic elections. See, whatever the candidates are for various political parties who are contesting the elections, they need some money, right? They need some money to, say, go on for campaigning, do interviews, and to set up various interaction sessions with the voter base. Now, that is why we have to understand the money and its role in any election is very important, and it is justified also. Like everything in our life, we need money. So for elections also, we need basic expenditure, which the political candidates need to do. Now, there obviously are some issues with the same, because we find that the source of the money, where is the money coming from? How is the money coming from? For example, say, where is the money coming from? Is it the money which is coming from a, say, very rich business person who is funding a particular political candidate for a particular political party, because maybe the main agenda for the donation for this particular election is for furthering of her or his own businesses? Or say, where there are other sources of the money also, for example, say, drug trafficking, money laundering, black money. So this kind of money are also, say, funneled into the electoral activities. So that is why we have found that the source of money in election, nevertheless, is very important. But how the money is actually coming and how the money is actually being used for electoral purposes, that is also a very important aspect. And that is why we have found that the donations that the various individuals give to various political parties for their electoral needs, electoral campaign, we have to focus on that discussion here. And that is why, don't you think that if we can, say, make these donations totally, say, transparent, digital, so we can track the transactions, it is good for the democratic, or say, ecosystem. So that is why this entire idea of electoral bond is coming into picture. Now, what is this? Say you are an individual and you are having some political, say, ideology, and you also have a political party in mind. So that is why you want to give what? You want to donate to that political party. So what you can do, you can directly give cash. You can directly give cash to the political party. But the thing is that this cash, as I told, can be tainted by black money and so on. And if, say, you are a very rich individual and you have a particular business end in mind, so it can, say, trouble your intentions. So what the government did is that government told that, okay, now what you can do, say, you can buy a certain kind of certificate where it does not have any of your name. If you want to, say, donate your cash to a particular political party, so the cash is your own. But now let us say, instead of the cash, right, which you can deposit, say, at some designated banks, designated branches of SBI, the SBI will give you what in return? A certain thing known as bearer instrument. It's just like the currency notes and coins that we have. Do we have our names and, say, surnames, address written on that note? No, right? It just say that it is, say, of this amount, say, for example, say 1000 rupees, and it is just, say, having no other details. So whatever donation that you want to make, you go to the SBI, you collect this thing known as bearer instrument, or say this is actually the thing which the government of India called as electoral bond, right? And what you will do with this bond, say you can deposit this bond at any political party's, say, office, headquarter, anywhere you want. So what the political party will be seeing, that they got a bond which with actually no name written on it. So it can come from anyone. But the thing is that political parties need to encash it. Say for example, it received a bond worth, or say a certificate or bond worth 1000 rupees. It needs to encash it. It needs to, say, extract the money from the bond. So it will be depositing its political party, say electoral bond, into their own designated bank branches. And from there, whatever the money the political party, say, withdrawing via this electoral bond, that detail has to go to the Election Commission of India. So this is broadly the ecosystem of electoral bond. And here we saw that it is actually a bearer instrument which no details on the same. Also it was introduced in 2018 to introduce this idea of anonymous political donation. Now you may ask me why. Because there can be some donations in the, say, economy or in the entire political arena with reference to political elections, that these people who are donating, they do not want their names to be made public. Because say if you are a particular political, or if you are a particular person who is, say, donating to various multiple political parties, right? So maybe the person is not comfortable in letting the public know to which parties they are actually donating to, right? This is one aspect. The second aspect that the many governments, sides, and also the very experts are telling, that there are many people in the society, say maybe, who are donating for the opposition parties, and maybe they fear that if the ruling party of the day, they come to know of the donations, there may be some, say, unfavorable conditions in their lives. So these are the two aspects why political donations sometimes are preferred by people to be kept anonymous, right? Okay. Now, who are eligible to receive electoral bonds? Can any political parties receive? No. Only registered political parties, and also there is a special criteria that they have to be registered under the RPA 1951, and also they must have secured at least 1% of the votes at, say, Lok Sabha or state legislative assemblies. So these are the criteria for the political parties to have received the donations. And what are the, say, denominations of the political bond, or say political electoral bond? That is, say, from 1000 rupees to 1 crore rupees. Right? So you can imagine that any person who is willing to donate can donate as small as 1000 to 1 crore rupees, and whatever the person will be, say, donating, it will be kept totally anonymous, totally secret, right? And here the authorized bank will be only some special designated branches of the State Bank of India. And how it will be working? It will be totally anonymous, as I told. Any citizen or any body incorporated, say a corporate body, right? Say any other, say, Hindu undivided family. So these are the individuals, these are the citizens who can donate via this electoral bond scheme. And what is the validity? For example, say you have, say, purchased a 1 crore electoral bond for, say, political party X, and you did what? You deposited that political bond to the headquarters of that political party, and that political party has to encash it within 15 days. Otherwise the funds or the monies will be going to Prime Minister National Disaster Relief Fund if the political parties are not encashing it. And it will be, say, electoral bonds were actually said to be released during some particular months, during some particular days of those months. These are those months: January, April, July and August. Now it is uncertain, it is left to be seen as to whether this scheme will be continued to any other legislative measure or not. So up till now, these were the calendars till which in a month 10 days were, say, allotted for these electoral bonds. And according to the government says that this scheme is totally transparent. How? Because remember I told you that the political parties, after encashing the electoral bonds, they have to disclose all the information to the Election Commission of India. Now if the political parties are disclosing the information of the payment that they receive via bonds, so the government is telling that is a transparent mechanism. But there are various issues related to this. See, the very first issue is with anonymity. Can I say that your vote is very, very essential for the democracy? And if you are going to vote at, say, a polling station, you had some things in mind before you are going to vote. What are those things? The very first thing is about, say, the political party or the candidate for whom you are voting. Now, for that, you need what? You need information. You need complete information about the political candidate's background, education, family background, number of properties, assets, criminal background, right? Also, about the funds, right, which that political candidate received for funding their elections. So is it not? Is it not your information, and also it becomes your right to know, right? So this is a very, very important aspect in any election, that you must be having the information about your candidate. And here we have a very, very important judgment regarding to the same, the K.S. Puttaswamy case. See, this K.S. Puttaswamy case is not directly related to this particular electoral bond scheme, but it told that right to privacy is a fundamental right of the individual. And say, if, for example, say the parliament has the right to, say, amend the fundamental rights. According to the Keshwanand Bharati case, we know that the parliament can definitely amend the fundamental rights of, say, the various individuals. But the thing is that to what extent that right can be amended according to the basic structure, of the constitution. And in the same thing, in K.S. Puttaswamy case, the Supreme Court in 2018 said that if the parliament is amending some fundamental rights, right, so it is, say, taking away some fundamental rights for, say, doing some overall good for the society. For example, in this 2018 case, it was said that the Aadhaar case was actually for what? It was actually for collecting the biometric information of various individuals to actually provide them with some, say, government goods, services and so on, such as rations. So, can I say that biometric information is a private information for everyone, right? But on the other hand, social security benefits, they are also important. So, say if I tell that the government will be collecting the private, say, information at the cost of what? At the cost of providing good benefits to the society only. So whenever the government is amending the fundamental rights, they have to do a proportional test. Proportional test is actually, say, when you are amending the fundamental rights, and when you are saying that this is a reasonable restriction, what is the reasonableness of that particular reasonable restriction, right? So this is the thing, privacy on one side, or say benefits on one side. If the benefits are more, say that we can, say, compromise with some of the privacy, so then we can say that the parliament is actually justified in amending that fundamental right. So the same thing is happening here in electoral bond. I told that anonymity is at the cost of your information. If the particular, say, companies are not showing their information, rich individuals are not showing the information to which political candidate they are funding their elections for, you do not have the information to know. How can you know from the electoral bond, right? It is a bearer instrument, and the election commission is only knowing State Bank of India, which is actually the government's central government's, say, purview. Only they know it. So we can tell that indirectly when the government knows it, you do not know anything. So how can you have that qualitative vote? So that is the important aspect here. That is the important debate here. So Supreme Court in 2018 case, it showed actually 3 steps of a proportionality test as to test the reasonableness of a particular scheme such as electoral bond, right? Is it reasonable or not? Very first thing is that if any particular thing has to be reasonable, it has to be backed by law. Are there any law which have been backing the electoral bond scheme? Yes. In 2017 and 18, the government did introduce the law via Finance Act, and it passed through the Lok Sabha and made various amendments in the Income Tax Act, in the Companies Act, and in also various provisions of some other acts too. So it amended those acts to introduce the electoral bond scheme. Next, does it has a legitimate aim? Or say, what is the purpose of electoral bond? Remember I told in the very beginning, it is to curb the black money in the electoral norms, and also say, for example, to protect the privacy of the donor. Some donors can be say telling that I don't want my information to be made public with regard to my donation. Maybe the ruling party will be targeting me if I donate to the opposition party. So these are the two benefits that the electoral bond is actually trying to promote. But final test is that are the benefits more than the cost? What is the cost here? Anonymity. Because anonymity is reducing the value of your vote. You do not know the information. But what are the benefits? Only black money. Only said privacy of the donor. So what the entire nation is benefiting in this? Nothing. Supreme Court told that right to information is a fundamental right under Article 19 of the Constitution. You cannot deny that fundamental right by telling that I want to reduce black money, I want to have say given the privacy of the donors. So this is not the same case here the Supreme Court told. I am not telling, Supreme Court told that it is actually fundamental right of if each and every individual to have the information about the political funding, versus on the other side these are the actually other benefits, but the cost is actually more. Information is not there, but we want to cut black money and anonymity. This is not acceptable. So this is what the Supreme Court told, right? So this is actually the highlight of the judgment here, that the particular electoral bond scheme has been struck down as unconstitutional because it said that information on the funding of political party is essential for voting. Do not forget this line. For prelims, for mains, it is very, very important that information for voting is actually very, very important. And here we also find that the people who have say higher money, higher wealth, they actually control the entire nation, right? This is the sad reality of our society, of not only say Indian society, but this is actually the thing which is prevalent all over the world. So whoever is having the riches, they are controlling the world. And with this we have to understand, if money is buying other things, so this is definitely bad. This is making the poorer more poor. But if money is buying some say political leaders, some mayors, some chief ministers, some say cabinet ministers, then that money is making not only the wealthy more wealthy, but wealthy more powerful. So that is a very, very important thing that we have to understand. Already we have economic inequality in India, right? We have more than a certain amount of people living below various poverty gaps. But apart from that, their political rights are also compromised due to political inequality, and this breeds political inequality, right? So this is why we have to understand that there will be some say business houses, rich individuals who would definitely want donor privacy, because they do not want their money to be known by the public as to for which political parties they are voting. Also the political leaders will not be wanting the same. They will not be wanting the public to know about their donors. So this is actually hand in hand. That is why Supreme Court told that right to donor privacy is not absolute. It is, if say Article 19 is subjected to reasonable restriction, that is the freedom of speech and expression and other fundamental rights, then this must be also say subjected to reasonable restriction. It makes sense. Next, having more money is actually what? Having more access to lawmakers and also quid pro quo benefits, right? This is actually what we also know as crony capitalism. Crony capitalism generally refers to that condition where the various rich individuals, which their resources, money and everything, they are controlling the government resources also. That is a decision making part in their own favor. That is quid pro quo. That means you scratch my back, I scratch yours. So this is the main thing here. Next, we also find that unlimited political contributions by any company, right, is unconstitutional, because companies are not welfare agencies. Private companies do not do not promote welfare agencies. They already have some ends in mind, that is their own benefits. So if a particular company is unlimited in manner donating to a particular political party, that means it has some wants, and that is what makes it unconstitutional. So any provision shielding them is also unconstitutional. That is why it has been scrapped off. And herein two institutions have been brought in, that is this SBI. They have been ordered to seize any new issuance of this electoral bond and also give all the details of the electoral bonds since April 2019 to the Election Commission of India. And Election Commission of India have been directed to publish all such information on its website as soon as possible, as soon as the beginning of the March. So it has to be seen yet what will be finally happening, but this is a very, very significant judgment, specifically if I can tell, since the NJAC judgment of 2014. This is the next most important judgment in recent times. This makes it very, very important for you to study this particular part very well. Now, in the comment section, you tell me what was this NJAC judgment all about. Now, in the next one, we will be starting to understand a very, very important article regarding the right to information. And here, this is the editorial which is celebrating the Supreme Court judgment on the previous issue. And it is telling that maybe this Supreme Court judgment will be reviving the significance of the right to information. Remember, we discussed that information is actually very, very important for the quality of your vote, right? And here also we can tell information is the king or information is the queen. Why? Because only if you have information, you can do something in your life, right? Only if you know about UPSC, you know that there are various stages in the examination, you have only about these materials to read, then only you can perform well in this examination. And this is information all about. If you have the information, you have everything in the world, right? So that is what right to information is actually designed for. And here we have to understand right to information is also a fundamental right of freedom of speech and expression under Article 19. And why it is a very, very important fundamental right? Because information will be letting you to develop your own individualism, right? If you don't have information to anything, right? For example, say if the government is actually say involved in various corruption activities, for example, say ration shops, right? For example, say the government is siphoning money from the ration shops, right? And you for example do not even have any idea about it. Can you say take any actions regarding the same? You cannot. So that is why we find that the role of information in common day and everyday life is very, very important, and that is also very, very important in government realm also. And here we have to understand the role of information is actually to empower the citizens of any country, right? And that is why actually the Right to Information Act was actually enacted in 2005. And this is actually to boost the levels of transparency and accountability in the various levels of the government, right? So that whatever the expenditures, whatever the decisions, right, that the government is taking, that must be known to the people, that is transparency. And whatever the decisions that the government is doing, they must be accountable, or say they must be responsible for their own actions, that is accountability. And here some of the key provisions of this RTI Act is actually making these things possible. For example, the section 4 tells that every government office, they have to maintain their records very, very properly. They have to maintain their files, their records and every catalogue in a detailed manner as to mentioned in the RTI Act, so that whenever the citizens will be asking for this information, you have to give them straight away. You cannot tell that we do not have files. Next, section 6 says that it is entitling a person to make a request in writing. Right now you can also submit the request over the internet. In the original provision it was actually in writing, to the central or state public information officer. And this particular request is for what? Is for asking anything about the government. If you want to ask for say the eligibility of the for the post of principal in your local school, you can ask that. If you want to ask about the funds that were required to construct this particular park, you can ask that. So you can ask anything from the government, because ultimately you have to understand it is you the people, it is for you the government is there, and that is why you should have the reins over the information of the government, every information of the government. And here the next section 7 is requiring the public information officer to either provide the information or they can reject it. Now rejection, I told that you can ask any information, but how they can reject it? They can obviously reject it under exceptions. There are many things in life, right, for which we have exceptions. with regard to information also regarding government functioning, we have some exceptions. That is, say, with regard to national sovereignty, defense, security, and also some functioning and roles of some national intelligence agencies and so on. So for those information you will not be able to get those, but for, say, other information which is out there in the public domain or which should be out, you can get them. And if, say, for example, the officer did not respond to you within 30 days of the receipt of the request, that person will be actually penalized. So the onus is on the officers, the public public information officers, to provide you with the information. Next, a person cannot receive a decision within 30 days, right? After the penalty, right, they can also file an appeal to the higher authorities in the particular architecture of right to information. And at the top of the architecture we have the Central Information Commission, followed by many state information commission. And from here only we have also various delegations of the architecture to the further district level and for the department level too. So this will be the chain of appeal from the lower to the higher direction. Now there are various issues with the act, and here the article is also telling that the first issue, start with the Information Commission. The Central Information Commission, which is at the central level, right, it is having many vacancies. Many of the information commissioners, they are not functioning properly due to the vacancies, and this is leading to many backlog, right, to many backlog of cases. The cases are piling up, the appeals are being piling up, so the functioning is being hampered. Next, according to Satark Nagrik Sanghatan study, it told that 4 out of the 29 in state information commissions are defunct, right? Why? Because they are not having leaderships, and 3 of them are at least headless. They do not have any, say, central head. So that is the main important aspect here. Next, we find that 19 out of the 29 State Information Commission did not even file their annual report. And if they are not filing their annual report, it shows that there are some issues with the functioning. Next, the mounting pendencies of the cases, delayed hearings of the second appeals is mounting. It is told that around 3.23 lakh appeals are pending as of now. This is a very, very serious concern. Next, the growing demand for information. For example, say the people of India who is actually demanding information through RTI of the various government functionings. They are increasing over a period of time, but the staff is not having that enough resources to provide the information. Also, the technological constraints are there with the state information commissions and also the various district services and the departmental services. So technological issues are also there due to low investment of technology. Next, we also find that there is a casual approach of officers in dealing with the RTI queries. They straight away deny the provision of any information. They sometimes also keep the things pending, and that also attract fines and penalties. So these are the issues, these are practical issues. Next, there are some issues not only from the government but from the people who are seeking information. Sometimes they ask repetitive information mainly for personal gain. For example, say a person who may be, say, willing to construct a 3-storied flat in a fallow government area. They may be asking asking questions on information on what is the nature of the plot or how that plot came to be developed. So this is actually a way of also harassing the government sometimes by some individuals, right? So this is also sometimes fueled by personal vendetta of citizens too. But though this is not a very major fact, there have been some minor instances of this. Next, finally, we have to understand there have been very serious cases of RTI activists being murdered due to seeking some sensitive information. So these are the various issues with the act. There are some issues, and that is why this latest Supreme Court direction regarding the right to information with reference to voters right to know about the political donation comes indirectly as an impetus to the Right to Information Act. And that is why this is actually seen as a boon, because of late we have seen the Central Information Commission and also State Information Commission, due to the amendments of 2019, right, their powers have been kind of curtailed, and that is why there have been many experts which have been telling that the information scenario in India with reference to governmental services, and also overall governance of the public administration is already on a declining trend, and that is why this order is coming as a positive sign. Next, of all the issues we have seen, the government must be taking reforms with respect to each of the individual things. For example, say with reference to vacancies, the vacant post must be immediately filled. Next, also the article is also suggesting that there can be a committee under the Minister of Personnel, and this committee can be comprising of information commissioners of say both state and centers, officials and even civic society members, so that they can have constructive and harmonious solution of the problems of pendency, vacancies and the non-provision of information and so on, to make this RTI Act truly a sunshine legislation which was actually intended in the very first place in 2004 and 5. So let's make this happen again, and you can use these words in your answer writing too. Next, we will be discussing about a very important and a short economic concept which came in the news today, which is the Windfall Acts. Now, what happened is India recently hiked this windfall tax on crude oil, petroleum and diesel, because we find the overall prices of crude, petroleum and diesels are increasing. Now, if the prices are increasing, so why the government will be taxing more? Shouldn't the prices, if the government is imposing additional tax, they will be increasing further? But no, we should not be thinking in that direction. Let me tell you. See, imagine a situation like this. Imagine this area, and this area is being hit by a severe hurricane and cyclones. What will happen? The level of water available in this particular region will be in a shortage. For example, say on a usual day, a bottle of water used to cost 10 rupees per liter. But when the cyclone struck, when the hurricane struck in this region, what happened? No water bottles, every water bottle destroyed, and whatever the few water bottles are remaining, there are some clever individuals, say bottle producers, who tell that I have say almost a decent amount of bottles, I protected them during the storm, so that is why I will be now charging 50 rupees. Why? Because you see now, for example, this person who is charging 50 rupees, that person is seeing an economic opportunity of making super normal profits. So whatever the profit that he would have made by selling only at 10 rupees, he is now making more. Why? Because now you have some different conditions in your world. For example, a natural disaster has struck, right? Or for example, wars are taking place, major geopolitical events are taking place, right? Or for example, say there are sudden shifts in supply or demand. So there can be some instances, right? There can be some instances where sometimes some producers are making more profit all of a sudden. So this storm, these cyclones are coming all of a sudden. These profits that, or say these situations that firms face, they are also all of a sudden, and that is why they see that their profits also jump all of a sudden. And here the government comes in. So government will telling you that okay, you are making profit, it's good, I am happy for you, no issues. But you should be also doing something good for the society. You should not always be profit minded. If you are selling your bottle at 10 rupees, now you are telling at 50 rupees. Okay, you can sell it. I as a government is not interfering in the market, but I will be imposing a tax on you. Because you are making more profits, you are only being selfish. Think about the society. Think about the government. You give some tax, that is the windfall tax. The government will be telling, you give some tax to me and I will be using those tax for government social welfare schemes, right? I will be using tax for the overall benefit of the economy. So that is what windfall tax is all about. It says that whenever the prices of any good or any service increases all of a sudden due to some various reasons such as natural disasters, wars or sudden demand and supply shocks in the economy, the tax that the government imposes on them, they also rise. So this is just a simple example of this windfall tax. And now I told you that the prices of crude oil and say crude petroleum and diesel are increasing internationally. This is leading to what? This is leading to Indian say petroleum crude manufacturers. They are seeing that the prices are increasing internationally. I am having more profits now. So that is why the government told that we will be taxing you so that you are making say almost normal profit, and also government can also, so the overall economy, they can also benefit from this same. Now the next article is about the production of pulses that is coming from the various statements of the union ministers. The union ministers are telling that the government has taken some adequate measures to improve the pulses cultivation and production in India. And also in UPSC PYQs we have seen there have been some questions related to pulses and their production and their area in India. Now here we find that India is the largest producer of pulses, largest consumer of pulses and importer of pulses, right, in the entire world. So please do remember this, that is the largest producer, consumer and importer. And pulses, you know, is a very rich form of protein, right? And in India most of the pulses are actually grown in the Rabi season, right? But also noted to be, you know, the Kharif and Zaid seasons are also seeing a lot amount of pulses cultivation. And if we see, look at the area of pulses cultivation in India, we can see that the states of Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh, Maharashtra and so on, they are the major pulses producing state. And we can find that almost 20% of area of all food grains in India is actually devoted to pulses. And the most amount of pulse which is produced in India is gram, followed by tur or arhar, urad and moong dal. Next, we find also the government in this article also is telling that he has taken many initiatives which actually boosted the production of pulses by 60% in 2014 to 2024. In 10 years, the pulse production in India went 60% up, right? And this is generally through a very important initiative known as the, you know, minimum support price or the MSP. MSP in the pulses, it is very important for your UPSC prelims. You should be knowing that MSP in pulses, it is given through the NAFED or the National Agricultural Cooperative Marketing Federation of India. It is not given by the Food Corporation of India. Please do note it to the pulses, right? Now, there is another important mission that is known as a National Food Security Mission pulses, to actually provide more and more nutrient rich and protein rich food to the major vulnerable sections of the population. That is the food through the food security mission, and a significant portion is focusing on the growing production and distribution of the pulses in India. Now, in the final article, we will be looking at the Schengen zone, and recently Kosovo secured visa-free access to the Schengen zone in Europe, the world's largest zone of free movement. Now, you know, whenever you go to any international country, you need what? You need a visa, right? Now, for example, that visa is only applicable for that country A or for that country B, right? Whenever you want to visit country B, you have to take a fresh visa. But in Europe, the condition is very interesting. So, we will be understanding this only. First, let us look at the mapping first. See, Kosovo is located just off the coast of Italy. After, you know, it is just located beside Montenegro, Albania and above Greece and North Macedonia. It is actually a landlocked country. And please do note, it is not having any route of access to the Mediterranean Sea, right? So UPSC is, you know, if you know, always loves this particular area, that is the areas surrounding the Mediterranean Sea. So that is why we are focusing a little bit on that. So you have to understand that Kosovo is not surrounded Mediterranean Sea. It is a landlocked country above Albania, beside Montenegro, and you can look at the rest of the surrounding countries. We have Bulgaria, Romania, Hungary, right, Serbia, right, and also Montenegro, which is bordering Kosovo. So please do have these things in mind, overall things in mind, right. Next, we find that this is the overall map of the Mediterranean Sea. If you can see, Kosovo is not having any link with the Mediterranean Sea. So what are the countries that we have around the Mediterranean Sea? We have Turkey, Bulgaria, we have Greece, we have Albania, not Bulgaria, we have Egypt on this side, Libya, Tunisia, Algeria and so on. So what is important for you? Please do note the names of all the countries which are surrounding, and also please do be aware of the various, water bodies and various important landforms, such as the Gulf. We have here Tyrrhenian Sea, Ionian Sea, Adriatic Sea, right? We have the Strait of Gibraltar. So these are the things which you have to keep in mind, right? So please do pay very kind of attention to this particular map. Next, we have something which is known as visa-free zone. I told that to visit any country you need a visa. To visit any other countries you need a new visa. But to visit, say, these countries which are marked in red by, say, in this European region, and also which are marked in this, violet color in this region, which is the red and the violet regions. If you have something known as Schengen visa, you can visit all of the countries. That is, actually you can visit, for example, France, and if you have a Schengen visa, from France you can travel by road, bus, trip, whatever you want, to Germany. From Germany you can go to Poland, you can go from Poland to Finland, Sweden, Norway, and so on. You can go anywhere you want. Now what is Schengen? It is actually a small village located in Luxembourg, right? It was instituted in 1995 with a view to liberate freedom for everyone, so that everyone has that freedom. If they have this visa, they can travel within these countries without any restrictions, right? The Schengen area constitutes how many? 27 countries, right? The Schengen area is constituting 27 countries, and not all of them are EU members. There are non-EU members like Iceland, Liechtenstein, Switzerland, and Norway. The 27 EU members, out of them 23 are within the Schengen. Excluding them are who are, for example, say these countries are not within the Schengen zone. They are Cyprus, Romania, Bulgaria, and Ireland. So only these exceptions you have to keep in mind. This overall idea you have to keep in mind. So with this, I thank you all for being a very, very patient audience, and all the best for your future examinations. Please do attempt the quiz which is following up. Till again, all the best.